The other European colonization power was France. The early expeditions were as traditional for Europeans looking for a passage to China. In this case, it was called the Northwest Passage. The expectation was such that one of the French explorers dressed in a Chinese robe in order to greet the Chinese as he arrived in Asia. Just incredible. Then they figured out it wasn't China, and so they got to work with the resources available. At first, it was fishing. It was just there. It was apparent. And so they began to get codfish and send it to Europe, just like the English. And then, of course, they got into furs, and they're going to go big into furs, almost exclusively into furs. There aren't going to be cash crops like lumber and wheat and oats and all the other things. They're going to focus on some fishing and principally on furs. And that takes them deep into the continent. In order to do that, in order to be effective tradesmen with traders with the Indians, they established Indian allies across the continent, living in their villages, learning their languages, showing them how to use the weapons and how to produce more furs. That is, of course. When I say deep into the continent, you can see from this map that they basically covered the Mississippi and all its tributaries. So it's a wide expansion of trading across the continent. This little video shows us how deep into the continent they were.
Tremblay! Look at these, Tremblay.
Whoa! Where did you drop them? Saint-Marie?
In the forest. My secret, Tremblay.
And how do you pay the Indian trappers, Mercier?
With knives, father. With cooking pots.
With brandy, Mercier, I'm told. With brandy.
Look at them. The English and Dutch have colonists. We have priests.
Who'd want to bring a woman here and have kids running half wild in the woods?
We're starving in the winter. Good afternoon, Father.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Father.
Do you think they're going upriver?
Who cares? As long as I'm not going. Leave the forest to the savages.
Remember that priest who came back like that?
Ah, it was the Iroquois. They caught him.
That's just fingers.
Filius. Spiritus Sanctus.
Amen. Amen.
Machito!
Dominus vobiscum. Father?
Wanjiuji!
Montana!
Upijawicz, młodszy tam. Wenjenji. Sztygojajenji.
Zuwiwi Chiddanan! Chamindo! Lipachti Shukanan! Chamindo Mswaka the Baimiduk!
Chio, noczna mantawa.
Ichiwa shishi moj, machubia sisij, ngomdao,
Chitachu.
nimwe,
Quebec Chitayo. Ud Chemendon Wall. Mo, Astitich. Astamakuda Chatich. Io, Dang Dang Dang.
Nastasia Gumps, Uniu, just two daos, biabida, nim the duch. Vanda, Sarach,
Obitamakuda.
What do you think they're talking about, Father?
Yawich,
I don't know.
młodszy tam.
Us?
Wenjenji.
Saan Mr. Goit? Mandahata.
We can watch it briefly, and here's some important places, and they get name places are French in many instances, with Native American words as well. So they cover a huge area of North America with very few Frenchmen. So very few Frenchmen are in the area. There's some in Canada as the governmental base and the sending off places in Canada, the ports and so on. But technically it's very few Frenchmen across a wide area of the continent. They live among the Indians, learn their languages, intermarry, and become very effective in what they're doing. The missionaries do the same thing. Instead of establishing separate missionary-led Indian towns, the missionaries live in the Indian villages. These are village Indians, hunting and gathering plus gardening. And the missionaries live there, become one of them, learn their language, their traditions, and live like Indians to a large extent. As we said, few cities, mostly in what is now Canada, and they control government and trade for this wide Mississippi River Valley basin. Understandably, the governor is appointed by the king, as is the English governors, as was the viceroy in New Spain. But they don't have a local empire, local governments, the way in which the English would have local governments. Instead, they have trading posts. And these trading posts, in time, become forts to protect one Indian group against another. And eventually, as we will see, to protect the areas from the British. Those trading posts are along the river routes, all the way in the Mississippi Valley tributaries, basin tributaries. There is a mixture of French and Indian cultures. And they have to deal with the expansion of English traders and settlements. And to do this, they built forts, tried to establish some permanent settlements in Louisiana and in New Orleans and other Louisiana towns, and in some of the areas along the Mississippi, key areas that they now see as competitors as the English are expanding because of the westward movement. The westward movement affects the French in two ways. Colonials are moving into their area to establish farms, and also Native Americans find English goods cheaper and better. England is the prime manufacturing power, and so it can provide more goods, cheaper goods, and in some instances, better goods. So now they have a new competitors. The English fur trade is exemplified by this will, this document that shows the value, the worth of the person in furs. So the fur trade is important. We haven't talked about it in the English settlement. I'd like to emphasize that it becomes important on the edge of the frontier. But the real crisis comes with the expansion of land speculators into the Ohio Valley. So we see two competitors from the English. One is fur traders, English fur traders that are doing well, and it's important for them as well. Not as big as it is for the French, of course. And then the westward movement of the colonists, colonials, and particularly into the Ohio Valley. The Ohio Company is a company made up by investors, and they want that area. And it's going to create conflicts with the French. In order to meet this conflict with the French, the English create allies. In Native American allies, they form alliances. And so both groups are now competing for Indian alliances. Some are with the English, some are with the French. And there were wars among the Native Americans as to who would hunt more beaver And now we have a new element that that the English and the French support these different Indian groups. And finally, by way of a footnote, Spain is still in Florida. There's going to be conflicts with France in Texas, but the English and have conflicts with the Spaniards in Florida as well. We'll get more into that later on. This is just so we won't forget that Spain is in another part of North America.